All right, we are live. Welcome to another GameDev live stream. My name is Charles, and you're watching this on Infallible Code. Today, I'm joined by Francisco Cruz. Hey, Francisco, thanks for being here. And we're going to be discussing GameDev, Unity, Francisco's personal project, which is going to lead us into a conversation, I'm sure, about Bolt, which he's using heavily. And then, of course, we're going to talk about, some of the other aspects of just working on a game dev project, especially personal projects, which if you've ever watched these streams, we like to talk about workflows and how to be successful and get motivated. So we're going to dive into all of that. But before we do, I have to go through the whole spiel, the whole YouTube thing. So as you're watching the stream, if you enjoy it, please smash that like button. Just lets the YouTube algorithm know that you're enjoying this content. Also, if you're enjoying this content, please subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified whenever we go live and whenever videos come out. Speaking of videos, I will have my first video in quite some time come out this Sunday. So if you haven't hit the bell icon, now's a good time to do it because you're going to get notified on Sunday for a new video. Awesome. Thank you, Elena, for hitting that bell. Hey there. Hey, Jason. I'm seeing some names here. Hey, Matthew. How's it going? Thank you guys for joining in here. Speaking of you guys and being thankful for you being here, just want to shout out my tier 3 patrons before we dive into it. So let's do that now. DJ Weaver. Thank you. Sarav Chatterjee, Jennifer Irwin, Christian Urizor, Alwyn Kuravilla, Umit Sarin, Anton, Mighty Possum, Amar Duranovic, Dustin, I always mess up this one, Piotr Bungo, Nav from Academy of Games, Usuf Ali Castle, Iron Alex, Trond, Darkwish Photography, Glasswell Entertainment, Thomas, and R-Star. Thank you. If I botched any of your names, please send me a DM anywhere on Twitter or Discord, and I will definitely fix that. So thank you guys again. And thank you, Francisco, for being here. Francisco, do you mind saying something about yourself? Just give the audience a little idea of who you are, your history, and your, I guess, your experience in the industry.
Hi, all right. Hi, I'm Francisco Cruz. Also go by Cisco, mostly for short. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. And I guess a little bit about me. I'm an environment artist / lighter by trade, but throughout my career, I've been wearing many hats. And until, a few years ago, I started going down the path of what's beyond environment art. So more like, what makes things performant or not, how to get, something from point A to point B via blueprint, or even scarier, C#. So I guess a little bit about my journey has mostly been in the art side of things. And I guess I also talk about a little bit of my transitioning from more of an art-centric role to more of a role that's wearing multiple hats, as well as coding and such. So I guess a little bit about how I started. I went to a Full Sail for school and such, and afterwards there was in Florida, there's some pretty big it's a big area for like military simulation. So my first kind of job into the world of 3D and real-time interaction was military simulations. So
wow, that's interesting.
So which was also interesting because I was more interested in like making game assets and real-time stuff, but my title at the time was synthetic database engineer. So it's just kind of funny because like right now I'm labeled as a senior engineer, even though I'm mostly doing environment arts and technical stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, started in the military sim space. The first gaming chance that came up, I took it, and that landed me in Washington. It was for a small startup studio just doing iOS games, and trying to figure out how to get stuff to work on mobile and 2D assets. And
was that always your goal? Like you did some work at your first job, but were you always trying to break into the game development industry?
Yeah, nice. My goal was always to get into some sort of game side of things. So the first few years was mostly a miss until the military sim came through, and then when the startup studio came up, I'm like, all right, I'm doing this. See what happens. So, like any startup studios, it could be a hit or miss, and this one was also a miss. So, once it went under, I was fortunate enough that Zipper Interactive picked me up, which they did the SOCOM series, and I was an environment artist in that project, and that was my first real big game shipped title for PS3 at the time.
I'm curious, was that like word of mouth, or were you just putting your name out there, your resume,
I
and
think it's
your
a combination. Like once the startup studio went under, I just like spammed everything.
yeah.
And during that spamming, I did a road trip to California for like more side projects for film, not film, TV. So I did like a what if spaceship scenarios for like History Channel shows and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
But film is even more rough than games. But anyway, I was fortunate enough that I got a call back for Zipper, and I went back to Washington and worked on SOCOM.
Very cool.
And again, like all industries is kind of fluctuating, and Zipper kind of got decommissioned. So again, looking elsewhere, and whereas I guess even going further back, like my dream when I was in my younger days was always, I want to work on the next Halo game, and just so happened I was in Washington at the time, and Bungie was up the other street. So after Zipper went down, Bungie picked me up. So
that's awesome.
I had the chance to work on the first Destiny game of the franchise, as well as some of its DLCs.
And was that the same situation? Like you're out of the job from Zipper, you saw the opportunity, you just kind of just spammed them, like, come on, hire me.
Spam them, and usually unfortunately when studios close, other studios are more kind of, their bells start ringing, like, all right, the studio unfortunately closed, but there's a lot of good talent, so let's keep an eye on them.
That makes sense.
So did the Bungie thing, and that's some good experiences. I think that's the biggest studio I've ever been at. It's like pushing 500 plus people at the time.
Wow.
And so yeah, that was pretty eye-opening, seeing like everything I've done prior to that was more like, all right, here's a single prop. So it was more like you have to make the texture and material, use 0-1 for the prop. It's used just for this prop. So while at Bungie, since it was more that semi-open world, you got it's like different processes on how to reuse a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like trim textures, the same material but tinted differently, and just to get a game of that scope to work on console was it's a fun challenge.
What did you do specifically over there, if you can talk about it?
I started in the old Russia area as an environment artist, so that involved I started off making pipes. I was a pipe artist.
That's awesome.
So
you should put that on your LinkedIn, former pipe artist.
So it's mostly on the content creation side of things for the old Russia area.
Yeah,
I did that for maybe 8 months to a year. But this is still early in the process, so a lot of the stuff I was making, I couldn't really tell how it looked in game because there was lacking lighting, because the lighting tech was still pretty young at the time. And so I kept on bugging the lighting people, like, how do I see my stuff in game? How do I add a light? So the following month I was drafted into the lighting team, and
that's awesome. So just you just constantly bothering them. They were like, come on, finally get over here.
To an extent, yeah. So with enough questions, I guess it showed I was curious enough and willing to learn. They needed help with that, so I'm like, all right, let me fly me to Mars, essentially. So I was a lighter for mostly in the Mars locations.
Cool.
And then also from Zipper, we did some multiplayer stuff. So the multiplayer side of Bungie was, all right, we needed some help for some multiplayer maps. Can you float over here and help So, so my time at Bungie was mostly with environment, making content, scene finishing, lighting, and multiplayer stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah, that game launched. My contract wasn't renewed, so I was back hunting into the field now.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I ended up in Atlanta, Alpharetta, Georgia, at one point.
No kidding. Oh wow,
Yeah.
I'm in Decatur right now, not too far from. That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I was in that area for Hi-Res Studios.
Cool.
So that was for I was on the incubation team at the time, and that was for the Paladins project.
Mm.
So leveraging what optimization and stuff that kind of helped for that project, and I learned even more because Paladin was targeted for like an Asian market, and a lot of the specs that we got was mostly on like low-end netbook kind of stuff. So the game had to be able to at least run on a netbook.
Wow.
So that was another fun project.
That's cool. I think that's something that I don't really think about too often, that these games, like a lot of games, have different market or audiences, and there's a lot of implications to that. Like, okay, this particular audience, we know that most of them don't have high-end machines, so you have to now make a game that's optimized to run on that kind of equipment. So that's a pretty interesting challenge that I'm sure you only really experience if you are in it.
Yeah, like, I mean, I could make the nicest looking next gen, fancy lighting, everything, but does it really matter if your target hardware can't run it?
Right. Yeah.
But with nowadays, who knows? We might be able to just push the raw data and like, all right, it's just working. That's how it is now. So.
In chat, Matthew Richardson wants to know if you worked on Smite at all.
I've touched Smite for maybe a day or two just to help touch up on some texturing, but I was mostly on Paladins.
Cool.
See, I was gonna pull out a Paladin prop, but I no longer have that with me. Actually, I think I left like one of the characters, Fernando, and he's like in full body armor. He's like
my gosh,
like that Silver Knight.
Yeah.
But as my parting gift to Hi-Res, I left that for them.
That's cool. You have all your swag around you.
Yeah.
Your game studio swag.
So another, I guess, downside of always moving is like, I got a lot of stuff I've accumulated or built, so I had to, part ways with it. But any small enough items, I'm taking it with me. So again, when I was at Bungie, this was The Last Word. I was a pretty big fan of the design, and I think it was PAX was coming up, so I decided to make a full Titan armor with
that's awesome.
Exotic weapons for it.
Of course, because that's what you do.
So if I'm not making something for a game, it's something physical from a game. So yeah, Hi-Res was nice. It was an eye opener as well. All of these studios has been an eye opener, but I wanted kind of more that type of game I wasn't too into that type of game, so another opportunity came up, which was Arcane Studios, who did Arcane Lyon in France did the Dishonored series, but I'm a fan of that type of genre of simulation, which is kind of funny because I started in simulation, now it's simulation genre of game. But I was fortunate enough to work on the Prey project.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's essentially BioShock in space, and that's
is that the one where like it starts off and it's like there's like a really dramatic cutscene where there's someone in a house and they get like abducted out of the house? Is that Prey? I'm thinking of Prey, so, like an older game, right?
that is Prey, but the whole thing is that's another Bethesda ZeniMax studio was working on that, and essentially we inherited the name, but the game in spirit is there. Prey, you got to survive against your predators and such. There's some aliens involved, but it's essentially unrelated.
Gotcha.
Only in spirit and name. I think that was the biggest comment. Like, is it related to that Prey, or is it this Prey, or the canceled Prey 2? No, so different.
Oh, that's right. There was going to be a
Just
Prey
an
too.
just a name. So if you picture it more like Bioshock or System Shock, it was more along that lines and
Yeah.
its own different story.
Question in the chat for you. Given that you've had all these different experiences and and especially at Bungie, you hopped around a lot of departments. As a software, Evo Capello asks, as a software engineer currently studying game design, I'm always afraid of having multiple skill sets. What is your feeling on the generalist versus specialist roles, especially when being hired?
I feel like if you want to target like the latest and greatest, like Call of Duty, like the most recent Call of Duty that launched, it's like that thing looks super amazing, like single player campaign and all that stuff. But you have to be super specialized to make,
Mm,
for that. On the other hand, if you have more hats, you have more opportunity to hop around. Maybe not not as big of titles, but like like I guess going back to Bungie, like I was more willing to learn and wear more hats, and I guess they found me useful in that case, and thus I could hop around and learn about different, you know,
yeah.
aspects of game creation. Whereas if I was like a super talented, like super like make hard surface modeling, all that stuff, and
Or
then
like an amazing pipe maker. You're
amazing
like
pipe
the
maker, I'd
best
be
pipe
like kind of
maker. Yeah.
funneled into just making pipes. So I'm like, at the same time, it's like I guess it's like I'm more of scatterbrain. I'm always hopping around. So this I like the mini hats,
Yeah.
but if I want to work in that next gen Call of Duty hyper realistic stuff, then my portfolio has to be more kind of focused towards that, which mine isn't right now. It's more broad. So
Yeah. Yeah. I
um
get you. So
so I guess
so
it
more
yeah.
so generalist for more opportunity to work at different scenarios and different companies. Specialist if you're like I want to work on the latest and greatest. You pick a
Yeah,
specialty and you lean into it heavily.
that's my feel on of it, and I'm just not I can't focus long enough to make that one thing look really good. I'm always by the time I make this pipe, I'm already thinking about how to do water fluid dynamics and particles and stuff, and
Yeah,
so
yeah. You can't help yourself. I get the feeling. It's just like I want to, I'm a programmer by trade, but like I want to play around with 3D modeling and lighting, and I want to like get into all these other things. So yeah, definitely can empathize with that.
um so I think at Prey with Arcane, I think that's kind of a turning point for me where like, all right, I worked at Dream Company, I worked in a really good game that I really enjoyed, but I'm under these big studio names and parent companies,
Hmm.
and a lot of them, especially like you know EA and other bigger names, they have certain policies where all right, if you're doing a gun for this game, you can't make a gun on your own, and
Hmm.
personal projects start becoming kind of a iffy topic.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the safe side is usually all right, just don't work on anything, don't do any side projects, don't do this. If it generates an extra income elsewhere, it usually kind of conflicts with what you're doing for the job. So
Right.
I kind of told myself after I shipped Prey, if I'm if I'm still kind of on the fence on like, all right, I want to pursue my own stuff. After I ship the game, I should kind of come back to it. If I still want to work on my own stuff, then all right, time to pack up and leave again, which is what I did. So again, Arcane was like amazing. I enjoyed my time there, the projects, and some good friends and people I met. But I put in my 2 weeks and moved down to a smaller studio down the street,
Nice.
which surprisingly was working on System Shock. So not the remake, but the System Shock 3, like the next in the series.
Hmm.
And that was my first kind of encounter with Unity. So the stuff we were doing at the time with Unity is like, all right, this is really good. This is some like next gen stuff I'm kind of looking forward to. Like the stuff I did previously, kind of it feels like it was leading up to this. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take that opportunity and see how far I could take it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was like the more I learn about it, I think it was maybe Unity built in, but it had a lot of HDRP pipeline stuff.
Hmm.
So I don't know if it's like a custom version on. Anyway, that's my first interaction with Unity, so I don't know how it was working underneath the hood,
Right.
but the lighting kind of sold me on it.
That HDRP impressed you?
The HDRP impressed me. The volumetrics, the world building felt like really easy for me to get into. Like I know I've worked in Unreal in the past, and I've enjoyed how that worked and all that stuff. I know something about Unity at the time. I was like, all right, this feels refreshing. It feels faster in that aspect. So world building and lighting kind of sold me on to it.
The world building thing is kind of interesting to me because, like, I always see. I mean, I feel like I always see speed level videos, and they always seems to be Unreal. And they're just, you always see these videos where it's speed build and they're dragging things around. And it's like, wow, it looks like it's so much easier, unless you're watching Saiku. But it's funny to hear you say it, as someone who's worked in the industry and worked on these big games to say that, Unity, the world building is easier. So I like that perspective. Real quick, by the way, I just want to thank Evo Capello for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Thank you, man. So sorry. Oh, a nice mug, by the way. I want to get me one of those. I need me a Unity mug. I have a water bottle, but I'm always drinking out of these big Yetis because I try to drink a lot of water, and my Unity water bottle is like this small. Yeah. But I drink a lot of coffee, so would love a mug.
I guess the plus side in being a developer is all my wardrobe and like utensils and stuff is like dev related. So I'm like, all right. Like I'm wearing like an this is like one of them custom shirts or something from Arcane, I think.
Nice.
I think it's from Arcane. The game Prey.
I need more swag, man. You're like the king of swag over there.
So where was I? Other Side. So Other Side Entertainment. Yeah. So again, it was a smaller studio, always, looking around the edge for like next wave of funding and all that stuff. And whatever went down with the parent company, unfortunate, but essentially had to find another job now.
Yeah.
And then I guess that's where it brings me to now, where working on Other Side for the past year, I got quite acquainted with Unity, some of their personnel, their professional services and such. Tossed my name to the hat, and I guess Unity needed environment artists, so here I am.
Nice.
So
how long ago was that you transitioned into Unity?
So as of, I don't know how, I can't math, but I've been with Unity since this past February.
Okay.
So again, where was I? Yeah, Arcane and Other Side was in Austin, Texas, and now again I have to come back to Washington. So this is my third time coming back.
Nice. Hey, the East Coast, man. It's the best coast.
West Coast.
Nah. I'm an East Coast guy, but we don't have to talk about it.
I mean,
actually, technically I'm I'm a Southeast Coast because I'm from Miami originally, but
if we keep going east to like Puerto Rico, I could do that.
Yeah. So. Sitting on a beach doing some environment art. You got you got your you can just look around and you'll be inspired.
Someday I'll go back, but Unity picked me up, and we have a new team and branch spinning up called I guess the team I'm on currently is called M3 Mobile Productions. So it's more focused on mobile, and I'm pretty much bringing my experience and journey and the AAA stuff for console and trying to get that into a mobile format now, and seeing how I can validate and break some of the new tools and existing tools and
importantly break the new tools.
Break existing tools so they could fix it faster.
Yeah, definitely.
So that is what I'm doing now. Yeah, it's pretty much to validate stuff as well. And
are you on mobile? You doing URP?
Yes, so we're using the URP pipeline and trying to make that look really good.
Very cool. Yeah, I have some experience with HDRP. I mean, as you know, I'm a programmer, so I can't really speak on it. But for me, I've been able to make some pretty cool looking things just by setting up, light probes and reflection, probes and all that, and just doing a bake of a scene. So I guess something's right if someone like me can make a really impressive looking scene, without much experience in environment art. My teacher is I'm just totally pandering to Saiku. My environment artist teacher is Saiku because I just watch his speedrunning videos and I'm like, I want to do that too. but yeah, to hear you talk about it, it's like, okay, cool, yeah. So it is legit,
So yeah, that's like my favorite bit is just the world building stuff. But being an environment artist, I had to create those Lego pieces before I could start playing with them in world building and then
Right.
lighting.
Yeah.
So, but no, it's catching up. It's getting nice. So,
Very cool.
again, even with URP, I'm messing with the reflection probe, light probe, other probes.
All the probes.
So like I said, also like my diving into like what's beyond just environment art and stuff, and
Right.
coming from Unreal and some of the blueprint system, it kind of got me into that mentality on, oh, what's the variable? How does this work? And like, so now that Unity acquired Bolt, and that's making my transition into that kind of visual scripting stuff a lot easier.
So previous to that job where you got into Unity, were you using Unreal across the board? That was like your main engine?
Oh, geez, I've been everywhere actually. I've started in what's the Half-Life engine? Source engine. I started a little bit in Source engine. Well, work has a proprietary or different engine. On my personal time, I was learning UDK, Source engine, other engines I can't rename, but going back in my list, like Zipper was proprietary, Bungie was proprietary, Hi-Res we use UDK, and then surprisingly, for Arcane we were using a CryEngine.
Huh. What do you think about proprietary engines? What's your experience with them?
It's definitely a hit or miss. I could see like a bigger studio like Bungie could take inspiration from the publicly available engines out there, take what works for them and use it for them, but also customize it to work for their type of games.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Zipper. It was a custom engine. It was horrible to work in, but it works. So and it works for its purpose. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
But engines like Unreal and Unity is more like broad. It's like, all right, whatever you could think of, we have to support it in a sense. So
yeah, I'm sure they must go through much more quality assurance than any proprietary engine. And on top of that, you've got the tools, and they've been tested by, I guess, is it safe to say millions of users at this point? I don't know. It seems like a lot of people are using Unreal and Unity at the very least. I don't know about Godot. But yeah, I mean, they've been vetted. They've been vetted heavily by the user base. So yeah, proprietary systems, they serve a good purpose. They serve a very specific purpose, but usually, yeah, I find it's a miss. Like really hard to work with.
Yeah, one of the main reasons a developer to make their own engine is to avoid fees and stuff like that.
You end up paying for it anyway, I'm sure. Yeah. Most of the time.
So, whatever suits their needs, that's what they do.
Yep. So that's your journey. We were talking before the stream, and you mentioned that you're working on your own project. So I'm curious to know about your indie game development journey and when that started, and why and how and what.
So all right. So to back up to like near the beginning, like middle school, high school-ish. I think back then I wanted, the height of Saturday morning cartoons. That's essentially what I wanted to do, is make a Saturday morning cartoon. I've dabbled in some web comics and stuff, and decided that my 2D skills is pretty lacking. So
yeah.
And then it wasn't until like I think Crash Bandicoot 2 and Final Fantasy IX era PS1 when it kind of clicked, like, hey, I could probably pursue this as a career. And eventually tell my, essentially start Saturday morning cartoons via an interactive format.
Yeah, yeah. And any particular cartoon? Well, what's your favorite?
It's all about Nickelodeon for me at the time.
Oh, heck
So,
yeah.
Hey
Uh,
Arnold, Cat
yeah.
Dog, Rugrats, Doug,
What was the Two Angry Beavers was my favorite. Oh, I think I lost your
Angry
video.
Beaver. No,
Angry Beavers. What I call it? Two Angry Beavers? Yeah, Angry Beavers was definitely my favorite.
Angry Beavers.
Cat Dog classics. Oh, that's awesome. So, what year were you born? Are you 80s, late 80s kid?
86.
86. All right, cool, man.
Yep.
88. Yeah, we were yeah, your camera came back on, so you're good. Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, I love watching Nickelodeon. That and like I would watch remember
Cartoon
Tsunami?
Network.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Was it Tsunami or Toonami?
Toonami with Tom the robot.
Yes. Oh, do you remember what was that show? It was all 3D.
Reboot. Beast Wars.
Yes, dude, that show was so epic. I love that show.
Like Beast Wars was like the height of like 3D for me back then. It's like
yeah, 100%.
Transformers, Beasts. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember getting home from school and watching some DBZ. And then I remember like I specifically remember like the Frieza. I haven't watched any of that in a long time, but I remember like the Frieza like battle. It was like, dude, it felt like months. Like, when are they gonna kill this guy? And then they finally do, and I was like, I couldn't believe it.
Charge up your power levels for like weeks at end because it was every weekend they would premiere.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, Reboot was the best. So, all right, so I get it now. So you had that as your inspiration. You wanted
that's my
translate.
inspiration, main driver. I decided I can't draw as well or animate in 2D, so I decided, all right, maybe video game in interactive format.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what led me to Full Sail to kind of get the initial, wrap my head around this is 3D and how it's used, and this is for film and TV and video games and stuff. And I stuck with the video game path and gone through my journey. And it wasn't until doing Arcane is when like, all right, I'm gonna decide if I want to quit Arcane and pursue my personal stuff, or better align myself with companies that would allow creative freedom, in company and outside of company.
Okay.
And that's what kind of drove me to where I am now. So
where you are now is you're working on a personal project. How far along is that?
Oh, it's so super early. It's like that. Like the more I learn about a certain aspect, the more I know that I don't know what I know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no. It's like it's funny. Like, you inadvertently said my favorite my favorite quote. That sounded really pretentious. My favorite Socrates quote. Well, my favorite quote is Socrates, and he says, the more I know, the more I know I don't know. And that's like, that's how you know you've made it, I guess. It's like, oh, I realize I'm like painfully unaware.
Yeah. So if anybody doesn't know, making games is hard. So I feel like I have a good, what is it? I've been doing this for like over a decade now for just environment art and lighting.
Mm-hmm.
So Bungie is kind of the path where like I started dabbling into lighting, which I guess a fun story on that. When I was at Arcane, when we were winding down on Prey, other Bethesda Studios was looking for help, and at the time Wolfenstein was trying to wrap up, so they were asking anybody if they knew, anybody know how to do cinematic lighting. I'm like, yeah, I know. I didn't know. But just because I mess with lighting, real-time lighting, in a sense, fake it fake it until you become it.
Yeah. There's like so many cliches, like wear the clothes you want to wear, or do the job you want to have. Yeah.
So,
but you kind of did, actually, in a way.
Yeah. Since I volunteered for since they drafted me for lighting on Destiny, I kind of have an idea of how real-time lighting work and all that stuff. So, how difficult can cinematic light be? And it turned out to be a lot easier.
Yeah. So do they give you any direction, or they're like, hey, this is the scene, this is what's happening in it, and that's it? Just light it, make it look dramatic?
Like, pretty much. They have like a rough outline or storyboard, or, all right, for this scene, this is what happens, and this is the color scheme or whatever we had in mind, and just make it look good. And
Nice.
since it was for a cinematic cutscene, even though everything was done in engine real time, it was essentially saved out as a movie file. So I could go crazy with lights and add extra rim lighting and stuff in the back. It doesn't count towards perf since we're baking it essentially.
Right. Yeah.
But stuff like that. If you think you could do it, then opportunity arise, and I took it. So that's how I got Wolfenstein credit.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, that's really something that I've learned over the course of my life and in my career is like, I mean, obviously if you're a cook or a baker, you're not going to go to a lighting studio and be like, I'm taking that job, but in you're always going to be in a certain position where you can you think you can do it. But if you don't think you can do it, I found that if you just try, like, I don't think I've ever failed to the extent that I was like, whoa, that was the biggest mistake of my life. It's just like, it may not come out the way you wanted or whatever, but it's always a learning experience. That's for sure.
Yeah, and like a lot of the like say art tests and stuff I've taken in the past, it's like, oh, have you done baked lighting in this environment before? I'm like, yeah, and then spend the next 48 hours without sleep trying to complete it.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of art tests, I'm sure your art tests are like for interviews, but how I'm getting a lot of questions in chat. We're getting a lot of questions in chat about Full Sail and your experience. What do you feel about your experience at Full Sail and how that contributed to your career? Like, do you feel like you learned a lot and that was helpful? Yeah. Because I mean, I always hear like, some people say, oh, it was a big waste of time. Other people, Yeah.
I hear that all the time, but I guess it's pretty much what you take away from it, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah.
Like at the time, it was 2004, 2005, and I don't think YouTube is as popular, flooded with tutorials these days. But
back then. Back then it was like
information was kind of lacking, and
yeah.
I've heard about Full Sail. They teach you all this. I'm like, all right, sure, let's do it. So I had a positive experience. It kind of like an eye opener. Like that's my first kind of big kind of university kind of setting, meeting a lot of people, which I never used to do in the past since I grew up in an island.
Where did you grow up?
Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought so, but the way you were talking about it earlier, and I was like,
yeah.
Very cool.
But yeah, born in Jersey, raised in Puerto Rico, school in Florida, which is Florida. College in Florida, which was Full Sail.
My wife lived in Puerto Rico for some time when she was younger. Where's Full Sail in Florida?
Slap in the middle, Winter Park.
Oh wow! Oh no, Central Florida. Yikes.
So yeah, it's nice and bustling, and weekends just go to downtown Disney or whatever.
Heck yeah! Oh man.
Like I said, I made the best out of it. I met some really good people, and it was a good, especially I have no idea what I was getting into, and they kind of covered, broadly covered what I wanted to kind of. They broadly covered what it was involved, and it was up to you to decide what you want to kind of focus on.
Yeah.
So at the time, it was computer animation. There wasn't a specific game design course at the time, but within computer animation, they're like, all right, this is what we do for film, and then for real time, it's less polygons, and this is how you do this, and so broadly speaking, here's some of the puzzle pieces, and it's up to you to kind of follow up on it.
Yeah. I mean, I find that to be the right nuanced answer whenever I hear people mentioning, oh, I didn't get anything out of school, and from my experience, I find that, well, you didn't want to get anything out of it then, to some extent.
Yeah. Like to me, it's like they lit the fuse and you could either take off with it or just, put it out. So
yeah, for sure. So go to school, kids. No, I'm just kidding.
Needless to say, I had like very little sleep. Any free time I had, I was spent in open labs, sleeping on the desks, and the continuing learning everything I can. So I enjoyed it. I had a good time.
That's good. Did you do any before you got into Full Sail? Had you messed around with it, or were you like completely just a blank slate?
It was essentially blank. Before that, it was webcam, comics, Photoshop, and I downloaded some ghetto 3D app. At the time,
was it called Swift by any chance? Because I used to use a 3D app like, dude, 2005. It was called, or maybe even earlier. It was called Swift, and like it was like so, it was so janky. I'm actually looking it up right now. Swift 3D.
Yeah, me too.
I have to look at this thing. Swift 3D, man. I remember I would open that thing up and I would like play with the lights. And I think it was Macromedia Flash was like the big thing back then. And I made a whole, yeah. Did you use that? Oh my gosh.
Actually, that was like my first thing. Is like back when it was Macromedia Flash Action Script.
Yes.
So that was like my first kind of planting the seed for like you know, figuring out game design stuff or some like simple logic stuff.
Yeah.
And that combined with curiosity of like, oh, I want to make my own. Like, MySpace was popular at the time, and that prompted me to dig into like, HTML, CSS, and all that stuff.
Dude, we have such a similar like origin story. I remember I used to make MySpace profiles for girls that I liked. All the girls in my class, you know, and like, oh, Charlie, make me one. I made one where it was like the girl's profile pic was like she was in a t-shirt, and I made the t-shirt change like the rainbow, like the colors of the rainbow, and I was like, whoa, that's so. How'd you do that? It's like Macromedia Flash, you know. Magic, baby.
yeah, whatever
that's
program
funny.
it was, I did dabble very little, but it was mostly on the Photoshop and 2D side of things. And Full Set was the first like 3D dump into 3D.
Yeah. Wow, that must have been something else, huh? I mean, going from, I'm just trying to think of my own experience, going from just messing around, like going on forums, trying to figure things out, to being like actually classically educated, like, hey, we're going to learn topography and, you know, UVs and lighting and light theory, color theory. I'm sure you learned all of that stuff. Fun fact, I actually wanted to go into art. I wanted to be an illustrator, and for whatever reason, like after my first year of college, I just like, I wouldn't say this is like the biggest regret of my life, but going back on it, I think I made the wrong decision from the perspective of I made a decision based on my fear, and I backed out, and I went to like to become an English major because I was like, I like reading and writing, so I'm just going to be an English teacher. And then finally, eventually, I was like, I like programming, I'm going to be a programmer. But all this to say, I was going to go into art. I wanted to go to the Art Institute. Actually, I wanted to go to SCAD in Savannah. But follow your dreams, kids.
I mean, you could do everything online these days, so why not?
I know. I'm taking a great course. I wish I could shout it out. I forgot what it's called, but it's a course where you make like a bunch of apples in Blender 2.8. You know that course? I don't know. I can link it later, but yeah.
Blender, like even Blender itself, has become super popular. They got a recently Epic grant and more developer funds, and it's getting pretty comparable, if not better, than some of the big softwares out there now.
Yeah, it's from what I can tell, it's really legit. You know, obviously I don't know anything, but I've been on the fence, like, because I'm the kind of guy that like I'm willing to invest in, I guess, in myself. So like I'll buy Photoshop or I'll buy Premiere Pro if I think it'll, you know, help my videos be better or help me be more legit. And so I've been struggling with like, I use Blender, but I want to take this to the next level. Should I purchase Maya? Should I purchase, you know, one of these other pieces of software? But I haven't done it yet. I feel like it might be overkill for me. Probably.
I mean, at this rate, I've been hearing more positive for Blender, or a lot of people deciding to ditch Maya for Blender these days.
Wow. All right, I'll save my money. Maybe I'll use my money to get Substance Painter or whatever.
Substance is nice. I'm trying to relearn that because, you know, it's a bunch of programs, you know.
I remember when it was called Quixel. That was Quixel, wasn't it?
Separate. Yeah, it's still a thing. I think Unreal, I think Epic bought that because they have Quixel and then the whole Quixel library. And then Substance, Adobe bought Substance.
Okay.
They got Painter, Designer, and Substance library.
Totally.
But
okay, yeah, they're two separate things. My bad. I misspoke.
But yeah, there's a lot of programs out there, and a lot of it roughly do the same thing. So I guess in terms of like 3D software stuff, Maya, Max, Modo, or whatever, just stick with one. It's pretty much knowledge is transferable. Just got to learn the different. You got to translate the different words and.
Yeah.
And
Very cool.
yeah, a lot of studios these days are like open to like, oh, if you're a Max guy, we get you a Max license. If you're a Maya guy, here's a Maya license,
Huh.
because they both spit out FBX. And then
Right.
at the end of the day, the engine wants an FBX. So
Yeah, and you wanna empower your your artists to use whatever tool they're most comfortable with. In. Well, let's go back to your project because I'm very curious to hear about that. So I guess, like you said, inspired by Saturday morning cartoons and that kind of kicked you off into this sort of notion that you wanted to get into game development. You worked in the industry for for some amount of years, and you came to a sort of critical point where you're like, you know what, I'm going to back out of this and I'm gonna focus on my project. So let's hear about that. I'm curious to know what you're working on.
also, I guess to go a little back during Full Sail days, that's where I
Mm-hmm.
met my lovely wife,
Oh, nice,
Beverly, who she's taken the art concept illustrator path.
cool.
So like every holiday or challenge or whatever, she has these nice doodles and cartoons and stuff, and really like simple but meaningful stories behind the character and their journeys.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of ties into what I wanted to do with the Saturday mornings, so combined with her art and concept and stories, and that's what this game is essentially going to be.
Very
So
cool.
with that, all right, where should I start up again?
You want me to switch to the desktop view so you can share some of this?
Sure. I'm gonna start in Unreal because that's somewhat unrelated, but I could just throw it out there.
Yeah, I mean, for those, obviously no one knows what we were talking about before the stream, but before the stream, we were talking about your experience in Unreal and how now that you're using Unity and you work at Unity, how you've sort of translated what you learned in that from visual scripting to now Unity. And it's funny, Matthew Richardson, he just asked about how do you feel you were able to jump into Unity Bolt. So I think that's going to be it's a great segue into talking about this.
All right.
So
Am I live
you are
now?
live.
Live, extra live.
We're looking at your
So
beach scene.
yeah. So this is over during the summer because of pandemic reasons. I can't go to a beach, so let me just make my own beach. So it's just a diorama. It's just a still. My wife drew a cute little like snake character. So it's just 2D chilling. But essentially it's just a simple scene, trying to figure out word position, materials and stuff, like the grass is swaying, the waters is moving, and all that's just done through material stuff. Same thing with the tube, the fire. Even the fire itself is just a sphere, but the material on it is fiery, and I'm just faking my VFX with materials.
Nice.
But
so this is in right. So that's in Unreal.
So this is Unreal. And other stuff. I mean, this is not my game idea, but this is just messing around with stuff. But things like, oh, I have an idea for a checkpoint system. If I reach a checkpoint, it remembers it. If I die, I just get teleported back to that checkpoint. If I hit another checkpoint, I die, I could go back to that checkpoint. But where is checkpoint? So the plus I give to Unreal is, since everything is kind of packaged itself, everything kind of talk to each other. So the idea of like, oh, this checkpoint system, if I hit this checkpoint, it remembers the last safe position and all that stuff. And I was able to kind of, I don't know how janky it is, but it works. And here's my idea. I could prototype it. It works.
Right. So this is the blueprint system. I've never seen any of this to be honest with you.
This is Unreal's blueprint system, which comes stock with Unreal.
Looks familiar. As someone who's used Bolt.
So I guess also before I got into this, when I was using CryEngine has something called Flow Machine, I think, Flow Maps, Flow something, but it's essentially a node-based scripting logic block thing. So same idea. I think every engine at this point have their own version of visual scripting, and I like it because, as an artist, I don't know how to code. I'm slowly learning C sharp, but a bunch of Lego nodes and stuff makes more sense to me.
Do you find I guess I should preempt this question with how much experience do you have with C sharp as of now?
I could make I could make an object visibility toggle on and off.
Okay, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. Do you feel like getting started with visual scripting helped you segue into C sharp a little bit easier?
I definitely like. I've tried using Unity. What's the early version? Like Unity 5 or something back in the day.
Yeah.
And a lot of the tutorials and stuff revolved around, scripting and stuff. How to move a character. You script all this stuff. I'm like, words I can't read. But so I guess messing with CryEngine's flow graph stuff and Unreal's, and it kind of got me into the mindset of, all right, these things are called variables, and if you do something, you could set a variable and then recall a variable. And
yeah,
I guess when I later come back to C sharp, I could kind of see how it's laid out and how it references back to each other. If this happens, then if else statements, and
yeah.
So that starts to click to me. I mean, that's it for Unreal. So let's go to Unity.
So you started out with Unreal, you got very familiar with the blueprints, and now you are working on your project in Unity.
Yes.
Okay. I see you're showing your doc. So this is good because it's something that I really wanted. No, that's cool. I wanted to talk about this. So yeah, I guess explain what this is.
So going back to, so again, I guess a shout out to my wife, Beverly. She's spearheading all of these amazing characters, and she has stories behind them. And
what's her handle? I want to follow.
So our handle is Instagram.com, and it's Cruz N Creations.
Oh, it's a joint.
It's this joint account.
Wow, that's commitment right there.
So Cruz N Creations, CRUZ Creations, and it's the same thing with Twitter.
Cool.
And also we both share Twitter as well.
Nice.
So going back to the whole, she has these amazing characters. I came to the realization I can't draw, I can't animate as well, and my story is pretty flat. So she has these amazing characters with stories, and I'm pretty much relying on her to art direct me on stuff.
Oh, you're breaking up there, Francisco. You might have one too many Chrome tabs open. Maybe shut down maybe Unreal or something.
I'm gonna pause my video.
All right. Yeah, okay, you're coming in clear now.
Some resource.
Yes. I'm telling you, add one more tab to Google Chrome, and you're shot. Your system's shot.
No, I'm closing it right now. So it also doesn't help that I have a million Chrome tabs. I have Maya, Unreal, and Unity open.
I'm pretty impressed that your system can handle all that and be live streaming.
And live streaming. All right, so real quick, my wife does all the concepting and story and all that stuff. One of it, edit, minimize. So one of the stories and ideas is called Cosmic Collectors. You essentially a celestial being capturing stars and raising them like Tamagotchi style.
Oh, that's awesome. I saw the Tamagotchi. I was going to ask you about that, but I figured you'd get into it. I had like 5 Tamagotchis. So I'm excited for your game already.
So we're pretty much spearheading it, me and my wife. She's doing all the 2D concept, art direction, story. And then all the heavy loaded stuff is on me.
All the technical stuff.
Planning to be mobile. And since, I'm in the mobile side of Unity, URP, this is also a good chance to show I could make something with URP and I don't know, see what happens. These are some of the doodles she came up with. Your main character, he's like a celestial nerd or something. He knows all about the stars and what's behind them, what power they hold. Yeah. And then
So
other characters.
what do you call what would you call this, a game design document? What you've prepared here?
This is a really rough game design doc. This is like, I guess, concept.
I think it's more than a lot of people have. I think it's great.
So just having an idea, like for here, I'm kind of answering my own question, like what kind of game or whatever. This is for mobile, Android, possibly desktop. I'm using Unity. I'm a simple star pet raising, like Tamagotchi, Gigapet, Pokemon, like the raising, leveling up side of things. And just get an idea of like, all right, I could see this as medium exploration, third person, fixed camera, try and figure out some sort of game loop. And again, like every time I walk the dogs, I may think of something new. So I may append that idea to the doc and see if that makes sense overall. But
cool.
So essentially that's a doc, so could always refer back to what I'm trying to do, keep focus, found some similar rough ideas, like, all right, maybe third person, top down, how big are these environments are going to be. If it's a fixed camera, I don't have to worry about like back faces since the camera's not going to rotate. So I could gain some perf back that way. More reference and ideas of, since it's space related, how you're going to travel to different systems to capture different stars. I'm referring a lot to Mario Galaxy at this point.
Right.
Got to get my Destiny in there because they have some nice infographics.
For sure.
And this is the extent of my 2D drawing right here. Is nice, but it gets the idea across. So
yeah. Your system.
Some more ideas about planetary maps and stuff. A little bit about like, how do you capture these stars? Since it's mobile, can I take advantage of touch and tapping and swiping functions?
Oh, that's really cool. I like that concept there that you have, like guitar. It looks like it's from Guitar Hero, but I'm sure it's something else. But that concept.
It's a concept of like rhythm based, like you have to tap at the right time. Pokemon is just a simple throw the ball, but I want a little bit more than that. So, and this is the current Tamagotchi game they got right now, which is really cutesy, and that's kind of fall in line with what we want to do. Maybe combine that with the Pokemon nursery, and just some more stuff about that.
Nice.
How do I escape? With that,
I like that. I just want to really, before you pivot away from the document, it's something that actually, like, not this week, but next week's video is all about, planning for a project and how do you do that. And you've done a bunch of the things that I'm mentioning in that video. One of them is collecting reference material. And I think that's super important. Even if your game in your mind feels super obvious and like, oh, I don't need reference, I know what it is. It's really good to just get reference material from different existing games or art or whatever it is, collect them all together to help really solidify your vision for your game. The other thing that you put in there were some technical details or requirements to help you understand what, as you develop, what are the end requirements going to be? Like we mentioned, I forgot, Paladin, I think, is the game we were talking about, where your team knew that the devices were going to be limited, so you had to develop to that, so you prepared. And then the other thing that you've kind of baked into here is the scope. Scope creep or feature creep is something that happens a lot, not just in game development. Yeah, I'm sure. Not just in game development, but just in really any sort of job where you have a project. That project can literally grow endlessly. And if you or someone on your team doesn't rein that in or figure out a way to keep it, tight, you're going to just be adding all sorts of features that no one wants or needs. And it's going to you're never going to end the project. So I like that you put this together, and I wanted to bring it to the surface to say that this is really great. And anyone watching this, if you're working on your own project, I highly recommend putting something like this together. And you know what? There's a million game design templates if you Google game design template, you don't even need to use that. You can, but a lot of the times, even I have opened those up and I feel super overwhelmed. Like, what the heck? How am I going to fill out all these fields? Just dump it all. Do a brain dump stream of consciousness, and that would be better than nothing. So, just really cool stuff there. All right,
Yep.
so
So another segue of a segue. So my main game pertaining back to, the Saturday morning kind of feel episodic. So that main game is called Vampire Apprentice. And it's pretty much following the journey about a young vampire. What is it? I've got it. Yeah, you're a young vampire of the new age. You have to recently move from a faraway land, attend a secret vampire school deep in the woods. But this was my initial Unreal project, and just imagining it is like pretty huge. And then the more I learn about it, it's going to be a big enough game, especially for just me and my wife. So the base, same thing with the Cosmic Collector. We have some docs, we have stuff being written up, and then the more we hone it, we still kind of realize this is going to be a big game. So this is kind of on the back burner. We decided to work on a smaller mobile title, which would be a good kind of break-in of making a game.
Yeah,
so that's where this game was born from. It's a lot smaller, should be simpler. It's not going to be episodic. It should be nicely self-contained, and so this is where we're putting our efforts right now.
Jones in the chat has a question. Have you ever had to hire an artist that's not your wife? If so, how did that go?
Again, this is still a lot of questions of what we'd want to do. So once we get I consider this like a first kind of pass. This is more like a concept doc. What do you want?
Right.
The next thing I would probably focus on is a game design doc, which lists like explicitly what you want to do. If I tap this button, what happens? What screen do you see next? How do you transition to the next area of the game? How do you play? The nitty gritty stuff. Once I figure that out, then I could start kind of planning, hiring outside help, like having that game design doc presenting, this is what the game is about. Here's the concept. Here's the idea. It would get them up to speed a lot easier, and hopefully not spend unnecessary, amount for redos and stuff like that.
In general, have you ever had to outsource any of your work, or is that?
Me personally, on my stuff, not yet. Well, mine is, I did some really early stuff with Vampire Apprentice with like early music prototypes, and that's just reaching out to what the indie game dev chat on Facebook group. Anybody who produces music, I'd like to hire you for like a song or two.
Nice.
And that's about it.
How was that process? I'm curious, just because like that's something that I've been like kind of procrastinating on, just because I'm like I don't even know how to approach it.
I mean, even like still, I've outsourced and hired one of my friends to do a logo for us. So, I mean, it was pretty painless. It's mostly I knew a little bit about them, or I checked their portfolio of music, other music stuff they've done in the past, and this sounds good. Maybe they could do something for us, and just reached out, agree on the pricing and what to expect, and that was easy enough.
Nice.
But for like other content like art and programming and other stuff like that, I'm still kind of figuring that out. Like I'm still learning how to set up Perforce by myself now, and how to deal with servers, and which on the plus side for working at Unity, we have access to our recently acquired versioning software, Plastic.
Oh yeah.
So
I haven't used that yet, but I saw the announcement. I've been dying to check it out.
So it looks more artist. They have an artist-friendly version of Plastic, and it seems pretty intuitive. I've used it a little bit, but again, I still got to figure that out, and then figure out if I'm hiring, how to give them access, how to limit access, and
right.
It's a lot of stuff involved, which I'm slowly but surely working on it.
Very nice. Very cool.
I guess a little bit about, going back to Cosmic Collector. I got a rough I got the concept from my wife a little bit. So smaller than Maya. This is the easy part for me. This is an older version. The lines is super thick. I decided against it, a little bit more softer. But I know a few weekends here and there, and there's my character.
That's great.
And since I'm semi-generalist, I got into I don't have the Maya scene, but I got into the rigging, some simple animations, and then the fun part of getting him into game. So right now I'm in Unity. I got the character in. I'm still using the older model because I haven't updated the rig because that's a hassle. But it's it's a lot of stuff like that, like goal centric. Like this next week I'm just rigging, and then animation.
Right.
Then I got to figure
right.
out. Then I got to figure out how to get animation into Unity because I have no idea. But so this is as far as I've gotten so far.
Just in case anyone's curious, that hand, I saw that earlier. I was like, "What is that?" That's actually really smart. Did you tell them about that? Because I didn't even think about that. Why that would be important. Oh, you're breaking up a little.
Wait, my connection's breaking. Let me unpause a little bit, and because I've had this Unity running in the background forever now in game. So, but essentially, since I'm targeting mobile, it would be nice to kind of preview, a finger, what your finger might be doing. So I just replaced the cursor with a stock footage from Google of a finger. And as goofy as it is, it helps me to kind of figure out, like, all right, what if my character is here, and if my big finger is covering, if it wants to select that stock, is it in the way, or it just helps me visualize and showcase.
Yeah, no, it's important. People don't realize that, like, that's one less thing you have to worry about once you put it on a phone for the first time, that, oh my gosh, my hand's covering half the things that I need to. Yeah, that's funny.
So all this is super rough. I think I started the actual Unity project maybe a month ago. And with that, as you can see next to it, I'm also using Bolt.
I always love looking at Bolt when it's running to see that little bubbles. Like, that's so much. Not to to talk ill of Unreal, but that looks so nice compared to Unreal. Like, you can see the flow of things. I don't know if you can see that in Unreal, but that's I like that.
That is the thing in Unreal and in CryEngine as well. So
it is.
It's nice to see that. Okay.
I was talking smack about Unreal without even knowing. My bad.
Just assume everybody have the same thing in some capacity. So just like in Unreal, I would just prototype a bunch of stuff. Since this is like all of your Lego pieces exist. Like, this is what update. That's your tick function in Unreal. Get mouse button down. So if I press, like this right here is changing my mouse cursor to be finger click. So if I click down, you can see the fingers going down.
Nice.
So it's let me see. I wish I could zoom out a lot further, but there's quite a stuff here. Since this is mobile touch centric, I have a game object that's handling all of the touch logic. So I have a lot of what is it? So I have different layers and tags for my game objects. So I have a floating X there, which isn't supposed to be there, but essentially, if I click on something that I'm not supposed to, you get the X.
Nice.
No, you cannot go there. And then there's circle ring, letting you know your character is going to be moving to that point. And then ring fades away once the character reaches there. And if you get close to, I'm surprised it's this smooth, to be honest. But yeah, since the acquisition, Bolt seems to be working out of the box right now. So I can only imagine it getting better once they better integrate it, with like stock Unity. But just, like back in the past, I wasn't able to make a character move because it was all script based in C#. Whereas now I'm just like It's all node based. I don't think I'm using any scripts at all. No,
Right.
not at all. It's all
Huh.
bolt related right now.
So I guess my next question is, you've really done a lot of work here, seeing all your graphs. How do you find the experience compares to Unreal?
I say because I started in Unreal, the transition was a lot smoother.
Nice.
The only thing I
Makes
had to
sense.
figure out is, the naming and some of the hierarchy stuff. And like pretty much how bolt handles variables is pretty different. I'm not sure how to best explain it. It's like the thing about bolt is to have like scene variables, and I could move it over. So you get like object variable, which is tied
Oh, I
just
see.
to the game object. Graph is tied to stuff happening within the graph, so it's more like a temporary variable. And the nice thing about bolt is you could send a variable across scenes or across the app. Whereas I felt like I had some trouble figuring that out in Unreal, or at least I wasn't. Yeah, so right now I have a variable that's app wide that's keeping track of my character location. And then I have another.
In software development terms, in case you're interested, that we would call that the variable's scope. So like you have variables that are scoped to a class or scoped to a method, or you'll have globally scoped variables, which, things like singletons, which people have many opinions about. But I think it's really neat. I didn't realize, or I guess I forgot that Bolt did it this way, where you can have these differently scoped variables that are accessible. That's pretty cool, actually. I like that. And saved, that's like what, persistent data? Oh yeah, totally.
If I'm still streaming.
Yeah. You're breaking up a little bit, but
how about now?
You're good. You're good.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, like if I have a game running, if I collect like 10 stars, that could get saved here. Mm-hmm. And when I boot the game up next time, it'll remember I have 10 stars. So that's
very cool.
It's kind of built in. So that's
yeah.
So this is like a rough like menu title screen. And depending if I hit different options, the camera moves.
That's cool. I like that kind of menu.
And let's see, do not move. Camera? Yeah, camera. So yeah, all that is, again, here we go. Set my camera to position to player, which is supposed to be to, whatever game object I have selected. So in this case, I have it targeting that green planet.
Mm-hmm.
So this one's targeting. Yes. So button click. Target is looking at.
Very nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm looking at the bolt graph, and it's actually making me want to mess around with it a little bit, because I just, obviously as a developer, I feel like a lot of the developer opinion is like, oh, I'm not going to bother with that. I'm a coder. I don't need I don't need something like that. But I think that there's a lot of really good. I'm switching back to the. I'm sorry. I switched back to our interview view, and I've just got your thumbnail, and it was just glorious, super glorious. Sorry. So anyway, a lot of developers, including myself, I imagine I can speak for myself. I looked at Bolt initially, and I was like, I don't need that. I'm a developer. What am I going to do with that? But something that I've been thinking about lately, and I think we discussed it like last week, was it is important. I see your thumbnail again. It is important for developers to be open to using Bolt, because it's like a gateway for artists like yourself, who you don't have much experience with C#. You're working on that, but a lot of artists will never learn C#, and you know what? Frankly, they don't need to, because they're artists. Just like as a developer, I may never learn illustration. I might do it for fun, but it's not. I wouldn't go out of my way to do it for my job. So I think that Bolt would fit nicely in the middle to allow you to create your graphs, or even allow someone like me who is a programmer to create graphs, and then have an artist come in and then be able to actually work with the logic and the code for their vision. So I'm just curious, like, is that like a pipe dream? Am I being idealistic, or does that, from your experience with Bolt, does that seem like that's how it is? I don't know if I still have you, by the way. You're popping back and forth between your camera and your awesome thumbnail.
It's kind of up now, in and out. So let me see. I keep getting unstable internet now. So huzzah!
Well, I love your thumbnail, and you're coming in just.
Okay, I think it. I pretty much close all of my Chrome tabs now, so. No Chrome, no programs running. All right, so
you seem stable.
Okay, so question was, how does Bolt fall in with programmers versus artists and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, like the whole pipeline of like I have to work with an artist, or an artist I have to work with a programmer. Is it like is it a viable link between the two?
I like to think so, especially for like smaller teams where the programmer could be messing around with like more high level or lower level, like more important stuff that's game related. Whereas I could start messing around like, oh, if I enter a room, can I trigger a post-process effect to like, cross-fade to another post-process?
Right.
Like within that aspect, I could do that easily, or,
something that's like decidedly artist related. A developer wouldn't be messing around with those sorts of things. They'd be like, I got to optimize this loading system,
Yeah, but at the same time, like it's more like making stuff in tandem instead of like progressive. Like instead of waiting on a programmer, like currently we have like one programmer in our team, which we're hiring. So, one programmer on the team, and to not take up all of his resources on something simple or not as important at the time, but important for me to kind of help visualize what I'm doing. I could go ahead and start prototyping stuff. And then the other side of it is programmers would say, "Oh, Bolt is it's not," but I think with time, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Or at least we're not doing like super crazy stuff with Bolt yet. But in terms of maybe like level design stuff, I think that's like a perfect compromise for like, especially for like level designers setting up, what is it, like mission objectives or something, like, oh, the character needs to go into this volume to trigger this thing. That could easily be done in Bolt, and I think that's I feel like that's the best way to tackle it, at least.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Programming that stuff, like programming the waypoints and triggering objective via script, just sounds like a headache.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it is. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because like that's another thing I talk about a lot on the channel is like writing or creating tools for your code, like which is basically what Bolt is, or it can be, I should say. That's not what it is. It's a visual scripting tool. But as a developer, my mind goes to, I spend a lot of time exposing variables on my script and putting little buttons and doing the custom property drawers so that I can, make it easy for other people to use my scripts without having to ever open up their code editor. And I just think like, I guess I don't need to do that technically for a lot of things if I use Bolt, because Bolt is like a language that I think both artists and programmers can understand and meet in the middle on. So I'm interested to give that a shot and see if I could, work with someone just to experiment with it. Because I mean, obviously you have experience, but like right now, I'm just like, am I just being an idealist and just, like, does this really work in practice? But it seems like it would. So yeah, cool stuff.
I mean, it goes back to like, programmer centric versus programmers versus artists, right? We're always going to want to do one way and programmers want to do it in a different way, but
if we could agree in the middle,
both sounds like a good middle ground. So
yeah, fair enough.
And also like a bonus to Bolt is when you first set it up, there's like, oh, you want to use programmer language or like friendly naming language or whatever. So friendly naming is more
I remember that feature.
And face again.
What did you choose?
I chose programmer language because programmer, because I'm curious and I want to learn things.
Yeah.
Still, if you could still hear me,
Yeah. I hear you.
if there's not much, there's not much boat tutorials out there. So what I've been doing is looking up C# stuff, what other people done in C#, trying to find, they're using something called transform get. I'm like, all right, let me see if that exists in Bolt. Since it's the same name and Bolt is using programmer naming, I could find that same node and then drag it into my graph. So
well, that's pretty smart.
Like reverse engineering code to do it worse, I guess.
No, that's pretty smart.
But at least I start to see the similarities and the naming and how things are set up in code. Like if I have like a if statement in C#, if I could understand how that's laid out or written, I could easily remake it in Bolt with the same kind of layout and flow.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. That's funny. Like reverse engineering code to make it visual.
Yeah.
Well, that's neat. Yeah, I'll have to give that a shot. Let's see. I think we got time for another question. I thought I saw a question come through in here. Let me see. Do you know if there's a way to convert existing code to Bolt?
I think I heard whispers about it, so I'm not in that side of engineering. So I think there was talk of it. Who knows? Maybe, possibly.
It's interesting. It's an interesting concept.
But I think if they get that, if we get that, that'd be like super powerful just to go back and forth from scripting, and so who knows? A lot of good stuff is happening so far, and in behind the scenes. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Tech Dave 99 says one use for Bolt could be getting prototypes created quickly, which I could totally see that.
Yep. Again, that's like super powerful. Like going back to the game design docs and stuff. If you just have something to show, you could already make the distinction. Oh, Mario. All right, you already have an idea in your head.
Yeah.
So I could see the same thing with Bolt. Oh, if I mouse if my finger click this will happen, and you could see visually. All right, that's what's happening. So
right,
it definitely.
That's cool. Well, we've been at this for about an hour and a half, so I think this is a pretty good place to start. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really enjoyed hearing both about your actual experience in the industry and now your experience sort of kind of charting your own path and working on your own project. I think that's really cool. It's a perspective that I feel like, I don't know, maybe we don't get to hear a lot, because a lot of people in the community are sort of self-starters, like myself, who are coming from different backgrounds and then sort of saying, hey, I want to make my own game. But you worked in the industry, and now you're like, hey, I want to do that too. So I think it's a really cool perspective. So thank you for being here and for sharing that with us.
Sure. Thanks for having me. That's pretty much my main drive, is going back to the childhood dream of I want to make my own something. So this so happens to be the path I'm taking to get that information and knowledge to do what I want to do.
You've inspired me. I'm looking up a Reboot. I'm going to see if I can find it somewhere, and I'm going to totally binge that today. And I think the game looks great. I wish you all the success, and please, as you progress, hit me up. Let me know how it goes, and maybe we can have you back on here and show you your progress. Yeah, heck yeah! I want to see the process. I think that's great. I want to hear about Bolt too, and see how that plays a part in the game's development. So thank you again. Thank you everyone in the chat for joining us today. Really appreciate you being here. You really help make this community be what it is. So appreciate that. And I think that's it. So everyone have a good day. Francisco, or Cisco, right? Cisco.
Cisco for short. Unless
called you Francisco the entire stream until the last possible minute.
A fun little tidbit. When I was at Zipper Interactive, there was another Cisco working there.
Oh, no kidding.
So I had to default to my childhood name of Frankie.
Frankie, yeah, that's nice. I like that. Well, Frankie, Francisco, thank you again for being here, and have a good one. And we'll see you guys later.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. Take care, everyone.